Hey everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for joining. We will be getting started in a couple of minutes. We're just going to let a couple people hop on. But we wanted to ask what y'all are feeling right now with this question. Do you think your website should stay or should it go? So if you drop it in the chat, let us know. We could kind of talk a little bit about that and interested in what y'all think.
It's a very interesting topic. I feel like websites are always evolving. And I'd like to give a shout out to all the early birds who are here, didn't want to miss a word. Undecided. I think that's a really great one.
Yes. And also probably why people are here today to help them
For
answer that
sure.
question. Okay, well, it's exactly 1 o'clock, and I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, good afternoon. My name is Mindy Avitia. I'm the Associate Director of Brand Marketing here at Mighty Citizen. And thank you for being with us here today for your website. Should it stay or should it go? I'm thrilled to be joined by my colleagues Nicole Aruja, the Senior Director of Client Engagement, and our Chief Technology Officer, Stephen Tidmore. They both presented this session in July at the Council of Engineering and Scientific Society Executives Annual Access Conference. So this is kind of in case you missed it or it was well received. So we wanted to present it to the entire association community. So thanks for joining. And I'm going to start with, excuse me, a couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions during the webinar to make sure they're not missed, please just post them in the Q&A so that we can get to them later as opposed to this Zoom chat area. I'll be on the chat and we'll be monitoring any that come through. But in case I miss them, we just ask that you put them in the Q&A. And also, throughout the presentation, feel free to engage with the content, leave in some nuggets of your own experience. We'd love to hear what you think, how you're applying some of these things in your own association. We want this to be an interactive experience for y'all. And then at the end, depending on how we go, we may or may not have time for questions. If we don't, we'll have some follow up for you to connect with us on how we can answer some of those questions at the end. And there'll be a QR code with the presentation slides, recording, some tools that will be sent to everybody after the webinar. So with that, I'm going to get this party started and hand it off to Stephen and Nicole.
Sounds good. Stephen, you want to get to that next slide? There we go. So Mindy has already introduced us, but if you haven't ever met me, I'm Nicole Arujo, and I am the Senior Client Engagement Director. I have been working with associations for well over 25 years, and that's going to be what I say for the rest of my life. But I'm really happy to be with you here today and to share all of these insights that our team has put together for you. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Cole. Hey, and I am Stephen Tidmore, the CTO at Mighty Citizen. I have been with Mighty Citizen for almost 14 years now and have been building websites for large organizations for, we'll just stick with over 25 years as well.
We are spring chickens. I don't know what you're talking about. If you are not familiar with Mighty Citizen, we have been serving the association industry and mission-driven organizations for going nearly 27 years now. And for us, that means associations, nonprofits, higher ed, and government. And with about 50 staff members, we offer expertise in user research, branding, marketing, content strategy, website design and development, of course, and lots of experience with strengthening your SEO, AEO, GEO, and analytics. And here are just some clients that we have worked with over the years. This is a very small handful, but just to show you, we do understand your technology, your operations, and the needs of membership organizations as a whole.
Okay, so we're going to start off with a scenario. So I want you to imagine, if you will, a scenario where a bored billionaire, for some reason, decides that he or she wants to give you $1 million to create the perfect sandwich. And you think, okay, this should be pretty easy, right? I'm gonna get $1 million so I can buy all the best ingredients in the world, the best meats, cheeses, vegetables, bread from anywhere. Problem though is that a sandwich can be made a million different ways, and you have no idea what this hypothetical billionaire even likes. What kind of bread? Are they vegan? Do they like mayo or mustard? And if mustard, Dijon or plain yellow? Do they like toasted or cold? So building a website, web design is kind of similar. There's lots of variables, lots of unknowns, lots of different ways to spend or waste time and money. And today we're going to dive into some of those variables. But the truth is that, at least for your organization, the sandwiches don't really matter. Your website, however, matters a big deal.
It really does. All roads lead to your website. It is the front door of your organization and almost your entire digital footprint. All other marketing and communications channels really refer back to it. It's where you're sending everybody. Your audiences go there to learn about you and see how you can support them, to use your tools and your resources and read the content that you produce. They really need to see themselves in your website and connect emotionally to the stories that you tell and the journeys that you put them on. And it's not just human beings using it, but search and answer engines reading it. This means that your metadata, your content, and your keywords are absolutely critical. And visitors make snap decisions based on what they see, what they feel, and that experience. And if bots and AI search can't find you or find what they're looking for, they just skip you altogether like you don't even exist. So put a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat if your website is up to par or not. Like, where are you seeing? Do you feel like it's a good experience or not? You can move to the next slide while we keep going. All right, thumbs down, Gwen. Oh man. So, um, you may need to consider some website changes if you're getting some complaints. You know, I've yet to find a membership organization that doesn't have a few people that are raising the flag on some issues, but more worried about the ones who just silently leave. Or let's say you've outgrown the scale of the website or the operational maturity. Your technology is not supporting you anymore. Or you've recently altered your branding or visually changed something, or you need to change how you're representing your value proposition. Maybe your website isn't telling the story that of your members very well. Maybe you've expanded your services or changed them in some way or merged with an organization. Your audience may have changed as well. Or let's say, I think what we see a lot is that your website's built for a certain type of user, but you're really trying to engage a younger demographic or different audiences in order to keep that pipeline full.
So by the end of this session, our goal is that you will be able to understand when to upgrade your website and also how to ensure that project is a success. Okay, so I'm certain that from time to time, whether it's hearing a coworker talk about what they want to do on the website, or a user talking about how they can't find something on the website, or maybe an executive misunderstanding what is actually happening with the website, you've wondered, do we need to redesign the website? And it's a deceptively difficult question to answer. So what Nicole and I want to do today is offer a useful way to reframe the question. And the question we like to use when we think about websites is our website doing the job it needs to do for our organization? So it's a job reframing, not just do we need to redesign it? Let's think about the job your website should be doing for your organization.
Absolutely. And you're going to hear that theme throughout this presentation. But let's talk about the difference in a refresh and a redesign. So a refresh is an iteration of the current experience that you have. It may mean that you're going to keep, but you may improve the current CMS. You may update the branding or add some new features. You might create, revise, or consolidate or reformat, maybe eliminate content. You may change the UX or the information architecture. You may, in this instance, it may be less expensive and it is typically usually faster. A full redesign is a whole new digital experience, and that may include a new CMS or a new visual design as a whole, new features, new content layouts, strategy and governance, new user experience and architecture, updated user journeys. And this is a much more expensive and a longer term project, but both have their pluses and minuses. So a strong website will have goals and outcomes that are really aligned with your organizational goals and outcomes. It really leverages your brand and your value proposition. It positions you clearly with all of your users. Your website has a really clear job and it's part of a larger system of content. You have very well-defined roles and processing for staff, and they know what they are. There's a clear sign of success. And sometimes that may mean that your CEO is actually mentioning some of the website stats as part of their leadership to talk about the successes that the organization is having. Number two is that your website really helps drive the outcomes in a positive direction. You're using the right data infrastructure to support an analytics plan. Things are tagged, the goals are identified, and they're being reviewed. Your CMS has been successfully integrated, and you're offering some sort of personalization, even if it's just members only content, right? You have a highly structured SEO, and it's findable, and AI is referencing your content. Your staff that works on the site can do it easily, and you're continually testing and improving the site. And third, your users are enjoying the site and they see the value in it. And that means they're coming back. This means that they're doing tasks that are really relevant to the audience that is there. The users can find what they're looking for, and they're managed. The tasks that they do have to do are done in minimal clicks. And you can see that in the reporting that you do. And you take that reporting and you continue to enhance that website accordingly. When you have all three of these things, that site is really working for your organization and doing its job.
And we don't want to forget about multiple sites. So if you have a multi-site setup or multiple websites, are those websites fighting against each other, or are they successfully supporting each other in the overall user and SEO experience?
And so how do you know that? We highly recommend doing some user research. And we see it often where it gets skipped in this process. And we would say, do some stakeholder interviews, do some focus groups, do some surveys, hear from your audience on what they want to do. Not the ones who are always highly engaged, but the ones that you're trying to get or the ones that you've lost, right? Evaluate your SEO, your AEO, or your GEO. Really understand what your keywords are. And let me go back a step here. Search engine optimization, your AI powered search, that's AEO, and generative search would be GEO. We want to find out what's really working and what's not so we can fix it and then put in what is missing, right? So those keywords are really essential for creating content. You really want to preserve any authority that your website already has. You want to future-proof your architecture and generative search. You also want to boost your topical authority to make sure that it's your results that the bots and crawlers are picking up. You also want to make sure that it identifies any setup that you need to do or any changes that you need to do with your structured data markup. So I want to ask, do you guys know what data markup is and schema markup is? You may have heard it. I know it took me a minute when our team started talking about it that I had to go, what are you talking about? Okay, well, we're just going to give a little definition to it here. So with now all different types of humans and bots and AI search looking at the data on your website, what data markup or schema markup is, it's a special code that's added to your website that labels your content and tells the search engines exactly what the information is versus letting the AI figure it out. And so what that means is you're controlling the narrative there. So, and Mindy's going to drop an article in the chat here about some SEO that'll give you some additional information. But another way to evaluate your website is doing a content audit. Using that keyword search, you really want to make sure that your content is reflecting that. So SEO will pick it up. You want to make sure that the layouts are working well for humans and bots. You want to confirm your governance and identify any content needs. Does it need to be let go, modified, or kept as it is? Also, is it showcasing your value proposition? Is it showcasing your brand strength? A technology review is going to show you how that technology is supporting your website, and that also shows you how to add personalization or automation and just reduce the amount of clicks. You want to prioritize accessibility and usability to ensure inclusive and effective user experiences. So these are things that you can do to check that. And this is just an example of content layout and formatting. The content on the left here, you know, it's valuable content and it's still very relevant to this particular industry. The problem is that bots will not pick it up. So 5 years ago or 12 years ago, whoever put in the chat that their website is 12 years old, the way you wrote content and how it was laid out 12 years ago is not how you need to lay it out today in order for bots to pick it up. So on the right is a chunking example that we recommend to really showcase and be findable in today's world. So, okay, you've done the research, You've done the audits. If the site drives your organizational outcomes, users enjoy it, and your tech supports it, you do not need a full redesign. In this case, the research you did will tell you what needs to be improved. So which of these things can you do in-house, and which of these things do you need outside help for? What incremental changes can you do over time to keep the site evolving? Maybe you can improve the navigation, search or visuals, maybe. Do an update on your content or add that structured data markup. Maybe customizing your members only portal would have more impact. So if you decide to do a refresh and iterate on your existing site, we really suggest documenting how the site is meeting your goals. This will help you. Treat this, again, your site is an employee. It helps you train new employees when you say, this is how the website will support your role. Review it each year and adjust it. It should be growing and maturing just like every employee does at your organization. Create reports for the executive team that really shows how the website is supporting the organizational goals and the strategic plans of the organization. Really keep focused on the right things. Sometimes we see when somebody's going into a refresh, they're like, oh, let's add this shiny, this new technology, this new piece over here. And it runs the risk of exacerbating something that's already in a good place. So make sure when you're looking at those new features or initiatives that you don't lose focus on what the website is for and what the priorities are for. Make sure that sometimes these can be expensive mistakes when you're adding things just to add them. And do regular user research, do check-ins and make sure that your website or certain sections of your website are fulfilling the needs of your audiences. If your users are frustrated, and again, executives don't mention the site at all, otherwise, unless in a negative context, or you've outgrown the design or the skeleton of your current website due to new services or growth, or the technology is changing and it isn't supporting you well, it's time for a major overhaul. And this is more costly and it requires about 9 to 12 months. So to kick off a project like this, again, getting really clear on what the job of the website is. To do that, find out what your executives are tracking and work backwards. How does the website support that? What metrics will tell the executive that it's successful? Have a really clear understanding from your users, which you're going to get from the user research you've already done. Talk to internal teams and departments and make sure that you're addressing all of their needs. Because again, this site should be helping everyone, not just one department. Brainstorm those features and make sure that it's adding the right focus. What's really going to drive the metrics? And this is a really big one that we challenge our clients with. What needs to be removed to maintain focus on the tasks that really matter? And then really, it's a good time to confirm if your brand is working. We highly suggest if you have any brand updates, do that before you jump into a redesign. Leadership buy-in is an absolute must. You have to frame your vision as outcomes. If we improve the process of blank and blank, we should be able to better support the organizational goal of blank. So that gives you something that speaks their language and supports them as leaders. And we do have an article on leadership buy-in too that Mindy's going to put in the chat as well. And then lastly, can you make these changes with your internal team? Marketing and IT have to be in lockstep on a project like this. So really make sure that all of the different departments, if it's education or certification, that they're all on board and that the partners that you select are going to support all of those departments as well. Because from the user perspective, you're one organization.
Okay, so if you go through this process and you don't have a clear answer, so you've done the research and you still find yourself in sort of an I can't decide state, this may be a good time to pull in a third party to help guide the direction of the site if you haven't done that already. You may find that some parts of the site are working well, but you can't say why or what benchmarks the site should actually be meeting. You may not have agreement on what the website's job is. It should be supporting your strategic goals. And if you don't have a strategic plan or goals, then that should come first. Different parts of the organization may be thinking about the website with different approaches and different goals overall. Maybe your web team is reactive versus proactive, and it's not really driving a coherent web strategy. So we highly suggest doing small projects to test success and revisit the organizational goals and user needs over time. We have a great article that also dives deeper into this topic, which will be included in the QR code at the end of the presentation, and Mindy may drop it in the chat here too.
Yep. Thank you, Mindy, by the way. Um, so we are entering part two of this presentation, and it's going to be a lot of information. So keep the recording, keep the references, reach out if you have questions. But you need a new website. What are we going to do about it? And I want to give you a quick warning here. Some of this content is really technical, but Stephen is really great about breaking it down so it's not so we can speak a little bit geek without being one. He's helped me a lot in my career, so I'm just going to say thank you, Stephen. But please ask questions as you need to, please.
I've made Nicole an honorary geek, but we're not going to
I'll
get too
take
deep
it.
into the tech speak here. But please, yeah, in the Q&A, ask any questions if you need clarification.
For sure. So we promised 6 considerations and we're going to give them to you. The first is a big one, content publishing. Associations are publishers and people come to your site to learn and to get your information and your expertise. In a redesign, you really have to consider the organizational goals and the existing procedures of content publishing for your organization. So who's working with the content now? What kind of permissions do they need in order to keep producing that content, or what do you want in the future? How is it working for everyone in the process? If it's not working well, what changes need to be made? Is your current content and formatting for your website supporting AI search results? You need to determine what needs to be improved, which of those things you can do in-house, and which of those things you need help for.
Okay, so a key point I want to make is that you never want to throw technology at a problem that you don't fully understand. You don't want to look for a technical solution to a problem that may actually be a user experience, branding, marketing, organizational content issue, any of those things. The same way you don't want to put a band-aid on a huge crack in a wall like this is because it's not going to fix the problem. And so you don't want to implement a technical solution to a problem that's not actually going to be solved by new technology. You can think about this, just ask yourself the question, is your content up to date and relevant now? And if not, why not? Is it really because of a limitation in your technology or your CMS? Or is it an organizational or content governance issue?
It's true. And I had a client that it was dictated by the board that they had to do a new website. And the first thing that they did is do an RFP for a CMS selection. And when I got involved in the project, my first question to them was, well, what are we fixing? Right? What do users need with the site? Why are we doing a new website as a whole? And the client wasn't clear on those things. So if you don't know what that problem is, you can't apply the right technology to it. And a new CMS isn't going to fix it.
Okay, but if you decide that you do need a new platform like a CMS, you do want to think about the functionality and features that you need in a content management system. One way you can do this is just to sit with your team and dive deeper into a few of these questions. You want to think about content publishing. So, is your current CMS simple enough for non-technical staff to use? What content can you control now? What content do you wish you could actually control better? Ideally, your CMS will help you follow the create once, publish everywhere model because you don't want to be duplicating content all over the site. You want to update each piece of content in one place. Think about multi-site. Do you need a multi-site solution that actually ties multiple websites together into one content management system platform? If so, that's a big criteria. Does the CMS platform that you're looking at, or multiple ones, do those have active communities of developers that can offer support if needed?
Mhm.
Does your CMS need to integrate with your AMS, event system, other third-party platforms? We'll talk more about third-party platforms in a minute, but just know that can be a big discussion and a big driver for the tech side of things. Do you need multilingual content now or in the future? If so, you want to plan for it in your platform choice. How do you want to control assets such as images, files, and folders? Is there a need for storing those externally in some sort of cloud solution? Do you need an integrated document asset management system? Lots of other questions we consider when building a list of CMS requirements. These are just a few. We dive into things like the need for modular content, desire for live previews, and permissions based on individual fields. But we want to give you a couple of the top ones we look at.
Mhm.
You also want to think about content governance across disciplines. So just to define governance, governance is a set of rules, processes, and protocols that define how an organization manages the website. And the website, of course, includes branding and technology, and it'll include aspects of design, code, and content. And governance can help you plan where you're going to live on a continuum between a centralized, consistent CMS platform and maybe a decentralized, more flexible CMS platform or platforms. And this is very important, especially if you're looking at the need to build multiple websites. Going through a process to uncover governance can help you figure out a proper balance between the needs of various groups in your organization. When building out an entire platform for multiple sites, for example, we may find ourselves somewhere like this on a continuum. We want a shared ecosystem for the design and the code that allows for consistency and how all the websites and all the pieces of each website will look and function. And then we lean more towards decentralization for the content itself, because this will allow each department or chapter or group to own its own content. We like to build in functionality that allow groups to share content between sites or between sections of the site if they need to, but still allow for a flexible content governance model. So, for example, news may be something that needs some sort of sharing capability. This is just a quick screenshot to show some content publishing options. This is something we like to do that provides you with flexibility in the content because you can build a page that meets your specific needs. This is showing kind of a page builder tool where you can choose content modules to build unique pages, but the design and the code are still controlled by the system. So you don't have to worry whether the content's going to fit in with the look and feel of the site, whether the page is going to be accessible and performant, because that's all out of the hands of the people working with the content. And then once you choose one of these content modules, you just need to fill in the content fields and not worry about what it's actually going to look like.
I think one of the most important things that we focus on in CMS selection with our clients is really usability. How can they run it in-house internally? How do we set it up for their success so that they're not having to come back to us, or they're not having to use an outside partner in order to just update pages? And I think that's something that's really important, especially in the association world. So content is one of the biggest lifts of any type of website implementation. We start talking about it early and often because it can be time consuming if you're changing layouts, or if you're needing to update the content based on keywords, or you're shortening it.
Yeah, so migrating content can be especially challenging and time consuming. And we talk about this early and often. So what you don't want to do, you don't want to end up with a nice, shiny new CMS that's filled with old, outdated, and poorly structured content. You definitely don't want to limit yourself also in the architecture and design on the new site by forcing all the old content to match up with what you have, all the new content to match up with what you have on the current older site. We often work with clients that try to avoid a square peg, round hole, or sometimes no hole problem. So some of the content, your existing content, may not be relevant in a restructured website. It also may not align with the newly architected and designed pages. You can't count on everything having a one-to-one fit for migration purposes. So for example, let's say your current website mostly consists of one large WYSIWYG field for each page. And WYSIWYG just stands for what you see is what you get. It's a field where you can add and format text, add links, that type of thing. On your new website, however, maybe we've decided that there needs to be a lot of structured data for multiple reasons. Maybe the team member pages have custom fields for the name, their job title, their phone number, their email address, department they work under, just as one example. If all that content on the old site was just in a big WYSIWYG field, it's basically just a blob of content, right? And so you need to go through a process to figure out how you're going to get that data into the structured fields. You need to decide, is it worth it to actually figure that out and build in some sort of migration script? Or are there only 20 pages and manually copying that content over takes less time? That's a real consideration. Even if it is possible to write logic around getting the data into the new fields, it might not be possible if the content on the current site doesn't follow any structure at all. So there are definitely times when you for sure want to bulk migrate content. And that brings us to content integration and migration plan. This is something that we do often that helps dig deep to map responsibilities around the content migration and integration. It plans out the data mapping, makes sure the roles and responsibilities are clear, and outlines which content needs to be manually touched along the way, even if there's an auto migration part to it that may need to be manually touched along the way. It's essential to mapping out the tangled state of content that currently exists and then planning how to get it into a new state where it'll be beautiful and functional, because you don't want to just move over the tangled content as is. You want to make it more effective. A migration plan can help answer questions such as, will each migrated page need to have a new piece of content added that doesn't currently exist? For example, maybe have a new event calendar that includes filtering based on some categories that didn't exist on the previous website. Someone needs to go through and assign those categories to each event as part of that process. This is also an opportunity to bring your old content up to date with more modern search engine optimization, generative engine optimization best practices.
And our number 3 here in this presentation is really what third-party systems and integrations you need. And your website's hardly ever an island, especially with really large, complex associations. There's always third-party systems that need to be taken into account. And this is more of an accurate picture of what that island would represent here. It's more so highways that are going into the website and to how many different islands it's going to.
Okay, so the first step when you're thinking about third-party integrations is just to audit all the systems and build a list of every third-party system that will need to be integrated with the website. You don't need to worry about the method or details, just make a list of all the systems. In order to build that list, there's lots of them. You can just think about things like how does your association handle member data, emails, lead forms, tracking code, social feeds, events, payments, et cetera, et cetera. Most associations are going to find themselves with dozens of third-party applications in their tech stack, like some of the examples we have here. And then once you have that list, the second step is to just put next to each of those the method of integration. So does the integration need to be simple, medium, or complex? So on the simple side, for example, is it really just some embed code or a link off to a third-party site? If so, great. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Is it a one-way data feed where the website needs to ingest information from a third party, or where the website just needs to send data to the third party? Or on the more complex side, is it more of a full API integration that requires some more complex custom code or modules or plugins where that'll allow the data to be shared back and forth between each third-party system and your website? One example of something like this is handling things like an integration with an events platform. So you might want to pull the event information into a central place in your site infrastructure, right? But then you may also want to give different chapters or departments or sections of the site the ability to pull the events that they want to display in their own section. So in this example that we're showing here, events are hosted on a centralized platform called Localist. Those events are pulled into a main event hub in the CMS. And then from there, each individual unit site or department or chapter or section of the site can pull in specific events to their sections. And so then both the main events hub and the individual sections are pointing to the same event details. So you're not duplicating content, but allows you to distribute that content in multiple places across the site.
Mm.
Single sign-on is a big question. Always, most associations need it. It's a configuration that allows your users to use one set of credentials to log on to multiple related systems. Every system connected to your association's website should ideally be controlled with a single username and password for each person, because you don't want to introduce separate accounts for every system. You want to offer people the opportunity to sign on once for all the integrated systems to create a more seamless user experience. So, do you really need it? And usually the answer is yes. Do you want people to log in to your actual website, the facing part, the front end of your website? Do they need to be able to log in there with a set of credentials that already exist with an external identity platform? Do you need to control content on the site and have it be gated to where only certain people who have access to certain things on the site have to have specific credentials? Usually that'd be things that are passed on through your AMS or something like that. Another thing to think about is, do you want people to log on to your actual CMS control panel where you work with the content using accounts that are external to the CMS, such as a centralized identity management system? If you do need to use a single sign-on system, I'm going to skip through some of this technical language pretty quickly, but you'll need to know which system is going to serve as the identity provider. If you already have an identity management solution in place, that would be something like an AMS, maybe a CRM with member accounts, or something that's a third party like Okta. That's going to make the decision for you. You need to find out what sort of technologies your system can support, such as SAML or OpenID, OAuth. And are there ways to integrate that technology easily with the CMS? Another thing to consider is whether your website needs to know information about the logged in user, or does it just need to know that they've signed in? So for example, if someone signs in through your single sign-on, does that need to pass information back over to the website about the type of member they are, or that they have a specific role, or that they're part of a specific committee, or does it just need to know the person has signed in and is authorized? Okay, AI integrations. So, do you want AI content and generation built into your CMS? And you may, and that's great, but you don't want to just say yes to all AI powered tools. How deep do you want to go with things such as AI powered personalization? You don't want to use personalization to solve a content organization or architecture problem in the same way you don't want to use technology to solve something that's not a tech problem. These kinds of AI integrations, it can take work to get right, and it's only going to be as good as the data you can actually feed it.
And I want to take a step before we go on to this next slide here, Stephen. When you're doing that tech audit, it is so important that you really try to uncover how your tech is really working and how it integrates. Like, make sure that there's not any separate systems or rogue website systems or software that a team is using because they tried to work around that. Now is the time to really fix it and set everybody up for success. So dig deep and make sure to check in with your other team members too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, question number 4. Where will the new site be hosted? You want to plan for scalable hosting and make sure you base your new hosting specs on projected growth of your site, not just on your current site traffic. First thing to do is to figure out the specs from your current website traffic and hosting environment. You're going to need to work with whoever has details about your hosting setup and visitor analytics to get information about things like the number of visitors and sessions per month, hard drive space, RAM and CPU, monthly bandwidth, and not only just regular activity, but also traffic spikes that you've seen over time. You want to make sure you're taking that into account. So if there's, twice a year, there's a press release that involves some program that gets a lot of traffic. You want to make sure you're accounting for the spikes that happen then. And ideally, you're building in a scalable solution that can scale up to accommodate that traffic. There's two big choices when it comes to hosting. You can roll your own with something such as just AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, or you can use a platform that's ready to go, such as things like Pantheon or Acquia or Craft Cloud or Upsun or Kinsta or WP Engine or Cloudways by DigitalOcean. If you roll your own, all the ingredients are there, and you can do great things with it. But you also have the possibility of rolling something that looks like this sushi here that may not work as well or be as cohesive. You really have to have someone who's very well versed in those systems, and you have to have someone who's available to support the infrastructure. If you go with a system that's ready to go, then you have a highly optimized, scalable, and performant hosting solution that you don't have to manage on your own. And a big benefit is that also most of these hosts provide 24/7, 365 support that most people really want or need. Something else to make sure you're considering is that on top of the hosting, you want to plan for a content delivery network, a web application firewall, that's the CDN/WAF there, and a transactional email provider. So a CDN or WAF, it provides a layer of performance and security that sits in front of your hosting environment. And it helps protect your website from lots of different types of security attacks, and also serves the content up much faster. A couple examples of these are Cloudflare and Fastly. In addition, you don't want to forget to consider how emails are sent after someone does something like fills out a form or completes an action on your site that needs to generate an email, such as a password reset request, if you're using the system of the CMS to do that. A transactional email service is highly recommended for this instead of relying on the web server to send out those emails. Some examples of those are things like SendGrid, Postmark, Mailgun, MailChimp Transactional. This is typically separate from your email marketing platform because it just generates emails based on a certain, they call it a transaction. It's just something that the user does on the site as opposed to you pushing out content.
All right, so we are moving to number 5, site search and AI answers, answer engines. So how are you going to help your users find exactly what they need right when they need it?
Okay, first thing to ask is, where does the data live that needs to be available inside the search engine? Does your site search need to pull data from multiple systems? And are all those systems web-based, or some of them, in some cases, we work with clients where it's an internal only database, but they need to surface some content into a specific area of the site search? Do you need to index the content on a third-party website? Do you need to have the text of PDF files or other files indexed by your site search engine that may push you one way or another when it comes to search solutions? You also want to think about private content for sure. So is any of the content that needs to be indexed only available to logged in users? And if so, how sensitive that is that data, and how secure is the search solution that you're looking into? You want to make sure that content is not available through a loophole in the search solution if it's meant to be locked down. Do you need your data to be categorized for filtered searches? Like where you can select a bunch of checkboxes on the left to filter things based on certain criteria. If so, do you need to add custom meta tags to each page in order to feed that data into the search engine, or is it able to pick up on the categorization natively? These are just some things that we ask ourselves when we're looking into search solutions.
So this is an example from one of our clients, and it's site search that we designed but implemented through a third-party search, and it really pulls together results from a publication site as well as the main site, and you can easily filter to target the specific information that you're looking for as a user. And it really builds a cohesive site search. It takes some cross-departmental collaboration to make sure that we're accounting for all of the data sources and the information, and then that needs to be included, and that the tagging is correct, and we're all working from the same, let's say, workbook of terms for sure.
Yeah, you definitely want to think about AI answer engines and AI chat and AI chatbots. That's quickly becoming expected on your site. There are tools that can be integrated directly into your site that will give an AI generated response or provide the capability to have an AI chat conversation with a user based solely on your own content and data. There's a lot of tools out there that exist right now, and that can do this right as you speak. Some of those are integrated directly into your site search tool, and some of them may be separate. So you need to decide as an organization if you need to protect your content from AI scanning as well. And if you want to do the reverse and make sure, or if you want to do the reverse and make sure is all indexed by AI and available and AI tools, and that can play into this discussion. So here's an example of just a basic AI-powered site search where the first result is an AI-generated answer, very similar to what you see in Google today. And then below this would be a list of more traditional search results. I do want to bring up this question of, do you even need a website anymore? After we gave this presentation recently, we had several people ask us if they really even need a website at all anymore, or if they can just have a robust site search and an AI chatbot that people can interact with instead. And I understand the hopes and dreams maybe of getting rid of the load of the website. But in our opinion, we're not there yet. Replacing your entire website with an AI chatbot is ignoring all the other jobs that your website does that we spoke about earlier. Even huge AI providers like ChatGPT and Anthropic, they have websites still, of course. You still need a website today for many reasons, including things such as furthering your brand and building a true connection with your members or other visitors through that brand. It's hard to surface your brand through through text, through an AI chat. Mm-hmm. You may want to surface content that people might not be searching for, or you may want to tease events and that kind of thing. Your website really is a hub for a lot of other integrated platforms, and that can't be replaced just by an AI chat right now at the moment. And you want to be able to control the narrative for your industry, and that's something you can do much more effectively with a full-featured website.
Yeah. All right. So number 6 here, what standards do we really have to adhere to, either legally or just best practice standards?
Okay, some possible ones you may want to think about. Things like browser compatibility, look at historical data to help make this decision. This isn't as big of a discussion as it used to be back when the Internet Explorer was still out in the world, but you definitely want to look at that data still. Are there any specific security requirements or policies in place in your organization? You want to know those now. So, for example, is adhering to security best practices enough, or do you need to follow some other set of more robust security standards? Do you need to allow time in your website build process to build in the time for a penetration test? What privacy laws do you need to follow? Things like HIPAA, GDPR, CCPA. make sure those are taken into account from the beginning. Another thing, do you have any written or unwritten expectations for the performance of your new website? That's a good question to ask at the beginning. You want to surface that information. For example, definitely if it's unwritten. So, for example, does someone of influence in your organization believe that the new site's going to be a failure if every page doesn't load in less than 1 second? And if so, you want to address that expectation early. You should be thinking about accessibility from the very beginning of a new web project. Accessibility just means that the website tools and technologies are designed and developed so that all people of every ability can use them. This isn't something you want to wait until the end to remediate because it can be a lot harder to fix things that were designed to be inaccessible once you reach the development phase. You need to go for WCAG AA compatibility at a minimum to be compliant with all the relevant laws that are out there currently. And just a very important note is that you cannot say your WCAG AA compatible through an automated scan alone. It actually requires manual testing. It requires some judgment calls. So you can never say your WCAG AA compliant fully just through an automated scan. And you want to test to make sure you're meeting those standards through manual testing as well. This picture here is showing a kind of a porch that has a banister and a ramp, and the banister is blocking the ramp. And this is an example of someone who may have met the requirements. They met the building code. They have a banister and an accessible ramp, but it's pretty clear they didn't test the usability of the ramp because you can't actually use the ramp. So doing full accessibility testing also means going through a process to test the usability of the site for people who are using all sorts of assistive technology.
Mhm. I would also like to add before we move on about accessibility, if you are rebuilding your site, any reputable partner is going to be building to the correct accessibility standards. So you wouldn't necessarily need to do an audit on your old, like if you are refreshing, do an audit on your old site to make sure that you're meeting those accessibility standards for sure. But you wouldn't have to necessarily do the audit if you're redesigning it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the keys to project success. Remember, your website is your most important digital asset. Every channel points to your website. Engaged users will come back constantly, again and again, and search and answer engines crawl it for answers about you and your industries. To be successful, we must first have team alignment and a shared vision. And that means that we are breaking down the silos and really building buy-in. A website redesign impacts the whole organization and it has to be focused on the user. Every department has to weigh in to some degree. Leadership has to buy in for that strategic value and to make sure that we're helping them achieve their goals. The why has to be really well communicated internally and externally. And people hate change, but they really love better. So it is worthwhile doing this.
Okay, key number 2, project management reduces risk and maintains momentum. Website redesigns can definitely feel like you're herding cats. You want to be prepared for lots of moving parts and lots of different phases.
I am so thankful for our PMO team.
Mhm.
But they're big and they have a lot of different things that you got to consider. You want to really pick a core group of decision makers. So while you get everybody's buy-in, you don't want everybody making the decisions. You need to have people who can really hone in and make that easily. You want to make sure that they're available. That's a big one. Engaged and aligned on the job. You want to make sure that you're clearly defining the timeline, the milestones, the roles and responsibilities. And, our team is really good at that. So I think you recognize when you've had really good project management and when you haven't. So we want to make sure that. Also, be very prepared to pivot, but only do it based on data. Like, don't do it just because you feel like you have a whim. Speaking of data, do that user research. It really enhances the focus of the new site. Get to know the people that you serve. The research you do is going to help you not only for this project, but for everything else you do at the organization. You can do that through interviews, focus group surveys, reviewing the traffic that you currently have, and to see the kinds of insights that people are going after. You really want to create a guided user journey. And I have yet to meet an association that does not serve that just serves one audience. You are typically serving prospects, members, suppliers, donors, early career associates. You have challenges in different areas and they speak different languages. They have different priorities. So journey helps you, or the user research helps you build that journey. So you want to map the front end experience for every internal touch point. And I think intention is a big word in a website redesign. Really offer those different routes based on the audience segments and really help to deliver more frictionless and a really relevant user experience. We at Mighty Citizen create what we call design systems that are very helpful with consistency throughout the user path, especially with external sites. They really help to provide direction for the color palette, the typography, the linking styles, the user interface elements, and all of the components. It also helps for when your team goes and takes over, if you have other designs that you want to base off of that or you want to use it, everybody's working from the same manual, right? And they work very consistently and coherently with your brand goals and they keep the user journey consistent. Number 5, and this is really important because we've seen a lot of this, really prepare for a proper launch. If you have a solution to all of your audience's problems, but you don't tell them, how will they ever know? And marketing is essential in projects like this. Create a launch plan that teaches your audiences over time how to use and interact with the new site. Create multiple touch points that are keys to gradually learn to rely on the site. Don't just send them 2 notices and that's it. Really give them intentional touch points to experience different parts of the site that are relevant to what they need.
Yeah, you don't want to build an amazing new experience and not have a plan to let people know about it.
For sure. So I'm so proud of us, Stephen. I really thought that we'd be like running over, and we have some time to
Okay.
address questions. But here is a QR code, but do not worry. Anyone who is attending, Mindy is also going to send an email out tomorrow that will have all of the resources attached to it. But I'm going to let us jump to questions if that's okay with you, Stephen.
Sounds great.
Okay.
There were a couple that came in through the chat that I'm going to start with. I know we have a couple in the Q&A, but I was going to read those and then we could move to the Q&A after if that sounds good to y'all.
Sounds good.
Okay, so Blake had a question earlier on when migrating to a new CMS, how do you preserve SEO? If you have to manually copy over existing pages, how can you prevent broken links due to the new website's file structure?
You want me to take that one, Nicole?
Yes, please.
This is so a redirect strategy is essential to these projects. We didn't go into every aspect of the full redirect strategy just for time. But our digital marketing team goes through a full process to build out a gigantic document of which pages need to redirect based on URLs. If the URL structure is in fact changing, because you don't want to lose any of the authority you have for pages, and they look at the actual which pages are driving the most traffic, and will prioritize the entire redirect strategy based on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Hannah had another question in the chat. She said, curious about centralized management of websites. Do you recommend this reside with one staff member or team member, or are there instances where a single representative of key teams have some admin permissions?
Yeah, this is unique for every organization, which is why that governance process is really key. But generally, I will say that you don't want to have a single point of failure for managing the content on the website, and you don't want to put the full responsibility on one person. So we like to build in content workflow or specific content permissions where maybe people in one department have access to this section of the website, and they can edit and work with content to their heart's content within that section. Or maybe we decide that you actually would benefit from a workflow process, which is where they can edit content, but only 1 or 2 people have the ability to actually publish those changes so they're live on the site. So that's something we talk about with every project, and I would encourage you to do the same just internally. Opening it up to lessen the burden on one person is usually my preference, and usually the preference of the people who are doing all that work. But there are some some associations we've worked with where they really just want to keep that within like one or two people and all content. It's updates
Mhm.
are emailed and that's how they want to handle it. And if so, you don't want to build in this complex process of permissions and workflow and never have it be used. So it's definitely something you want to talk about.
I want to add a piece in the importance of having really good foundational messaging platforms in your content creation process.
Yeah.
Like if you are having multiple creators of content and they're publishing separately and you might not have that approval workflow in place, really make sure that people are all using the same workbook of what is approved messaging, what are the keywords you should be putting into the website content, how is it formatted. Make sure everybody has that training. I think that's important too if you are using multiple.
Yeah, definitely.
And this question came in through the Q&A. Do you recommend replacing keyword site search with an AI chat tool? What's the best experience you've seen on an association site that implemented AI chat?
I don't. I'll go first, Nicole, and you can chime in if you have
Mhm.
something else to add. I don't recommend replacing it completely. What most people seem to be expecting now is kind of the experience they get on Google and other popular search engines, where you have a set of AI generated responses at the top, but you still have a set of more traditional keyword results, towards the bottom of that. In addition to actually having a more robust chatbot where you can ask questions and interact with it. So I think all three of those are still key. There's a lot of platforms out there now that are popular with the association space that will do that, that will do that well and give you the solution for all three. That's for the overall site search. There's definitely sections of the site, like maybe you have some sort of resource library or just publications where it may make sense to just have like a keyword search and filter as opposed to generative responses. But for the overall site search, in my opinion, I think all three are still needed.
Mhm. I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay, good.
Okay, we have two more. I think this is kind of a popular one. What's the most effective personalization you've seen on an association site?
Ooh, the most effective personalization.
I think I'm going to start this in the essence of Mike Steckel, who is our VP of user research here. It depends. It really depends on your audience, and because some of them want highly personalized, some of them don't. I mean, obviously, member, non-member, and they want to speak directly to that specific member type, and that can be done a lot easier. But Stephen, I'm going to let you jump in.
Yeah, I, I've seen a lot of instances of personalization that may not be fantastic because they're using it to solve a poor navigation or site structure problem. Um, and so I think the type of personalization that's most effective is where it gets out of the way and it actually serves content to the person that they're looking for, but not doesn't need to make guesses that may not turn out to be true. You don't want to over personalize. The personalization space is changing rapidly with more real-time AI personalization and that kind of thing, and it's going to continue to change. Hyper personalization based on real-time behavior on the site will just get more and more impressive. But again, you don't want to over personalize just to solve a problem that you have with the organization of the content or with actually making some decisions about what the key job of your site should be. What's the main target and audience of your website, and so you want to surface that first rather than just using personalization to solve it.
Mhm. I love that. Back to basics. Like, let's make sure the basics are solid, and then let's add it
Yeah.
because then it's just going to be more accurate.
All right, we actually have one more, so we could get through all the questions.
Woohoo!
Yeah, woo, good job, guys. For smaller teams that also have active boards, suggestions on corralling those cats on the board who want to influence website redesign when it has nothing to do with what the board members do for a living and truly don't know.
I feel like this is a good one for Nicole to answer.
Oh man. Oh man. Okay. So, um, organizationally, you're always going to have voices that are going to want opinions, and I think you have to acknowledge them, but also put it into the place of, is it really solving the problem? that the website has. Sometimes, and we've dealt with this where we've had very heavily involved board members who, again, don't have the expertise, but they are very much a part of the decision-making team. So having their opinion is essential, but then also backing it up with data to say, this is why we suggest moving in this direction and kind of guiding it. But they can't lead the ship, especially who has to lead the ship is really the strategic goals of the organization and the users and how to get them moving in the direction you want them to move in. And the data will show you how to do that. Stephen, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, yeah, I think that's the best.
But you
The
have
best
to handle
answer
it
is
gingerly too.
yeah, and we say often that research kills opinions, and so
Absolutely.
the research helps a lot.
Well, we're almost right exactly at time. We still have a couple people on. So thanks again, everyone. Just really quickly, when you exit the Zoom webinar, you're going to be taken to a post-event survey. And these surveys really help us understand what kind of content we can help with y'all. We take it very seriously. We take your feedback very seriously, and we work to improve and update our future webinars and content based on what y'all want and need. So thank you again. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Nicole. And
Thank you, Mindy.
of course. And be on the lookout for that email tomorrow.
Yes.
See ya.
Thank you, everyone. See y'all.
Thank y'all. Bye.